Have you ever been certain of a memory, only to find out you were completely wrong? It's unsettling. Imagine recalling a major global event, news reports, grief, even a funeral, only to be told it never happened. This is the experience of thousands who vividly remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s. For them, the memory is detailed and emotional news coverage, a funeral, a widow's eulogy. Yet, the historical record tells a different story. How can so many people from all over the world share the same false memory? It challenges our trust in memory itself. This phenomenon, so striking and widespread, has given its name to a broader psychological puzzle, the Mandela effect. Before we explore why this happens, let's look at what really happened to Nelson Mandela. The truth of Nelson Mandela's life is more powerful than any myth or misconception. His journey from a young activist to a global symbol of hope and reconciliation is a testament to the strength of the human spirit. Mandela's story is not just about one man, but about the millions who stood with him, who believed in justice, and who refused to let oppression define their future. The fiction of his death in prison has spread far and wide, but the reality is even more inspiring. Mandela's life was marked by struggle, sacrifice, and ultimately, triumph over adversity. In 1964, Mandela was sentenced to life imprisonment for his unwavering fight against apartheid, the brutal system of racial segregation in South Africa. He would spend 27 long years behind bars, 18 of them on the isolated Robben Island, enduring harsh conditions and forced labor. Yet, even in the darkest moments, Mandela never lost hope. While he was locked away, the world outside was changing. Mandela became the world's most famous political prisoner, a living symbol for the global anti-apartheid movement. His name was chanted in protests, written on banners, and spoken in hushed tones by those who dreamed of freedom. The call to free Nelson Mandela echoed across continents, uniting people of all backgrounds in a common cause. From London to New York, from Cape Town to Sydney, the world demanded his release. On February 11, 1990, after years of mounting pressure and negotiation, Mandela finally walked free. Hand in hand with his wife Winnie, his fist raised in triumph, he stepped into the sunlight, greeted by a nation and a world hungry for change. He emerged unbroken, his spirit intact, ready to lead his people toward a new era. The joy and hope that filled the streets that day were felt far beyond South Africa's borders. Instead of seeking revenge, Mandela chose the path of reconciliation. He worked tirelessly to dismantle apartheid, negotiating with President F.W. de Klerk and reaching out to former enemies in the spirit of peace and unity. Their efforts led to the birth of a multiracial democracy, a new South Africa, where all could have a voice. In recognition of their courage and vision, Mandela and de Klerk were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1993, a moment that inspired millions around the globe. In 1994, Mandela achieved what once seemed impossible. He became South Africa's first democratically elected president. His inauguration marked the dawn of a new era, as people celebrated the birth of a free and united nation. Mandela passed away in 2013 at the age of 95, leaving behind a legacy that continues to inspire. He is remembered as a global icon of peace, forgiveness, and the enduring power of the human spirit. The real story of Nelson Mandela is not one of tragedy, but of resilience, hope, and the belief that change is possible, even in the face of overwhelming odds. So why do so many remember it differently? Perhaps it's because Mandela's life was so extraordinary, so full of struggle and triumph, that it feels almost like a legend. But the truth is even more remarkable than the myth. The contrast between the false memory of Mandela's death and the reality of his life is bewildering. In 2009, Fiona Broome coined the term Mandela effect, after discovering many others shared her memory of Mandela dying in prison. The idea quickly spread online as people shared similar experiences, misremembered events, quotes, even logos. Suddenly, personal confusion became part of a larger pattern. Broome's website became a hub for cataloging these shared false memories, from movie lines to brand names. The Mandela effect is compelling because it involves a major historical figure, not just a candy bar or cartoon. Some even speculate about alternate realities, but science points to the quirks of human memory. Psychologists see the Mandela effect as a striking example of collective false memory. Our minds reconstruct, not record the past. Once you notice the Mandela effect, you start to see it everywhere, popping up in the most unexpected places. It's as if our collective memory is playing tricks on us, rewriting the details of the world around us without us even realizing it. Take the famous line from Star Wars. Most people are absolutely certain that Darth Vader says, "Luke, I am your father." It's quoted in movies, TV shows, and even everyday conversations. But if you go back and watch the scene, you'll discover the real line is, "No, I am your father." There's no mention of Luke's name at all. This tiny difference has fooled millions, showing just how easily our minds can fill in the blanks. Over time, the incorrect version became so widespread that it's now deeply embedded in pop culture, almost replacing the original in our collective consciousness. It's a perfect example of how repetition can overwrite reality. Another classic example is from Snow White. Most of us grew up hearing the phrase, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" It's iconic, instantly recognizable, and quoted by children and adults alike. But if you check the original Disney film, the actual line is, "Magic mirror on the wall." That one word change is enough to throw off generations of viewers, yet almost no one notices until it's pointed out. The misquote probably comes from earlier versions of the fairy tale, but it's the Disney version that most people remember and misremember. Even the world of brands isn't safe from these memory glitches. For example, many people are convinced there's a hyphen in Kit Kat, and will even argue about it, but if you look at the actual logo, you'll see there's never been a hyphen. Online, you'll find photoshopped images of the old logo, which only reinforce the false memory. These doctored images spread quickly, making the illusion even stronger. These aren't just isolated mistakes or simple slips of the tongue, they reveal something deeper about how our brains work, how we unconsciously reshape details to fit the patterns and stories we expect. Our collective memory is incredibly creative, but it's also surprisingly unreliable. We trust it, but it often lets us down in subtle ways. The Mandela effect is a fascinating reminder of just how easily our minds can be tricked, and how confidently we can remember things that never actually happened. But why does this happen? What is it about our brains that makes us so vulnerable to these collective memory glitches? One of the most persistent false memories is the Monopoly man's monocle. Picture him, top hat, mustache, cane, and for many, a monocle. Yet, he never wore one. Polls show most people are certain he did, but every version of the game proves otherwise. This is a visual Mandela effect. People see a detail that never existed. Why? Our brains use mental shortcuts called schemas. We associate top hats and monocles with wealthy characters. Think Mr. Peanut. Our minds blend these traits, so the Monopoly man should have a monocle. Over time, this imagined detail becomes a concrete memory. We're not recalling the real image, but our brain's version of what fits the stereotype. The monocle is a perfect illusion, crafted by our minds, not the game's designers. We like to think of memory as a perfect recording, but it's more like a story we rewrite each time we recall it. Our memories feel vivid and real, but in reality they're constantly being edited and reshaped by our minds. Each time we revisit a memory, we're not just replaying it, we're reconstructing it, sometimes adding new details or losing old ones without even realizing it. Memory is reconstructive, not a playback of exact events. Our brains are designed to piece together fragments of information, using logic and imagination to fill in the blanks. This process helps us make sense of the world, but it also means our recollections are never quite as reliable as we'd like to believe. Each time we remember, our brains fill in gaps with logic, assumptions, or suggestions from others. Conversations, stories, and even media can influence how we remember things, subtly changing the details over time. Sometimes we even borrow details from other people's stories, blending them into our own memories. This isn't a flaw, it's how our minds make sense of the world. By reconstructing memories, we're able to adapt, learn, and connect with others. Our brains prioritize meaning and coherence over perfect accuracy, which helps us function in daily life. One reason for misremembering is source amnesia. We remember the fact but forget where we learned it. This can lead us to confidently recall information without knowing if it came from a trusted source, a rumor, or even a dream. Over time, hearsay or fiction can feel like personal experience. The more we repeat a story, the more real it becomes to us, even if it never actually happened. Our memories are also vulnerable to suggestion, the misinformation effect. When we hear new information after an event, it can alter our original memory, sometimes without us even noticing. If enough people confidently assert a false detail, it can become real in our minds. Social pressure and repetition can make us question our own recollections, leading us to adopt the group's version of events. The Mandela effect is amplified by the internet, where shared false memories spread quickly. Online communities can reinforce these collective misrememberings, making them feel even more authentic. Our brains are built for efficiency, not perfect accuracy. In a world overflowing with information, our minds take shortcuts, prioritizing what's useful or meaningful over what's strictly true. This is why we misremember, and why sometimes our memories are more about the story than the facts. The Mandela effect has become a subject of scientific study. Research shows some images and details are consistently misremembered in predictable ways. For example, many recall C-3PO from Star Wars as all gold, but he has a silver leg. Our brains simplify and generalize, making details fit familiar patterns. False memories aren't random, they're logical tweaks that make information easier to store. Our minds remember the gist, not the details, optimizing for quick decisions, not perfect recall. The Mandela effect is a map of our cognitive shortcuts, not evidence of alternate realities. The Mandela effect tempts us with wild theories, parallel universes, body doubles, secret conspiracies, but there's no credible evidence for any of these claims. The real Mandela lived, led, and inspired for decades after his release, as documented by countless sources. The idea of a body double fooling the world for years is simply implausible. The simplest explanation is the fallibility of human memory. Our minds are prone to suggestion, simplification, and confabulation, creating false memories without intent to deceive. The Mandela effect is a fascinating glitch in our mental software, not a sinister plot. The Mandela effect teaches us that certainty doesn't equal accuracy. In a world flooded with information, it's vital to distinguish between what feels true and what is verifiably true. Our memories are personal, but facts are public. We must rely on credible sources, archives, journalism, academic studies, to ground our understanding. This isn't to dismiss memory, but to encourage humility and openness to correction. Embracing this mindset helps us resist conspiracy theories and misinformation. The real story of Nelson Mandela is one of hope, resilience, and truth. By understanding our mind's quirks, we can better appreciate the facts and the legacy of leaders like Mandela. The Mandela effect reminds us, history is best built on evidence, not just memory.